Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has presented no evidence to New Delhi of Indian involvement in the alleged assassination of Khalistan terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The reason? There isn't any evidence. Prime Minister Trudeau told an ongoing hearing of Canada's Parliament that he had no hard evidentiary proof of the involvement of Indian government agents in Nijjar's killing. The Prime Minister said all he had was intelligence and not evidence. Now, some years back, the popular US satire magazine Mad once brought out a list of useless inventions. Among them was this one: bladeless knives without handles. In short, nothing. So this is in short what Prime Minister Trudeau had against Indian involvement in the assassination. Nothing. Mad magazine list could include another Trudeauism: credible allegations. Now, this is something the Prime Minister has cracked us up with in the past. And now India's MEA has come out with a statement, a harsh statement, which says that the responsibility for the damage that this cavalier behavior has caused to Indo-Canadian ties lies with Prime Minister Trudeau alone. But why is Prime Minister Trudeau running a one-man scorched earth policy when it comes to Indo-Canadian ties? And the short answer to that is the Khalistan lifeline for his government. And that's what we're discussing on the News 9 Plus show tonight. Prime Minister Trudeau's political survival. But there's also another reason why the Canadian Prime Minister seems to be doing what he's doing. That's Chinagate, which we'll come to later in the show. Joining me to discuss this tonight are Ambassador S.D. Muni, Professor and former Indian diplomat, Pramit Paul Chowdhury, Head South Asia Practice at the Eurasia Group, and in the studio I have with me my colleague Deepak Badana. Gentlemen, welcome to the News 9 Plus show. Ambassador Muni, I want to start with you first. A very strongly worded statement from the MEA, which holds Prime Minister Trudeau singularly responsible for the state of the ties between India and Canada today. What's your take on the wordings of the MEA statement issued a few hours ago?
But I think this is a reaction to Trudeau's own, I would call it, irresponsible utterances, and in which he refers and confesses that I don't have an evidence. I am not much worried about the evidence aspect. I'll tell you why. Because they don't want to reveal what are the sources of their intelligence, who they have talked, how they have managed. So they normally conceal, and normally most of the countries conceal it. The real problem here is that Trudeau is basing this intelligence on the basis of what they call the Five Eyes, which means there are other countries involved. And as we know that the UK has already come out openly in support of Canada. More than that, the US has also indirectly been supporting Trudeau and Canada.
Yes.
Even Australia is supporting, and that is a cause of worry to me.
Right.
We can see that it is Trudeau alone, but Trudeau, because Trudeau has voiced whatever it is, but behind him is the backing and support of almost all the major Western countries, which is a matter of worry.
Right.
And I think it's a matter of concern also, which I think MEA should react to. Now, I don't see why MEA is hesitating in pointing it out.
Right.
What UK has done, what US has done, what earlier Australia had done. Who knows, tomorrow again Australia would come up and say something about it. So what is it which is being cooked in the Western pot?
Right. What is being cooked in the Western pot? Pramit Pal Chowdhury, how worrying is the fact that all the other Five Eyes countries, at least two of them, have chosen to join in with Prime Minister Trudeau on this one-man crusade of his? How worrying would you be as an analyst?
I'm not worried at all. I think the statements that all of them made, given that Canada is a treaty ally for all of them,
right,
have in fact been quite remarkable. In fact, if I'm correct, three of them don't even mention India by name.
Right.
Only America does, but then adds that India is a crucial partner to the Indo-Pacific. At the same time that this happened, America signed a deal to sell us Predator drones,
right,
a technology that theoretically no non-military ally of the U.S. has ever had access to.
Right.
We have ministers from Australia in the country who
right,
didn't even make a reference to this.
Yes.
and the British and the Australians announced that they would be resuming FTA, the next round of FTA negotiations. So as far as I can see, if anything, the Western governments, from what I'm hearing in the Canadian press, the Canadians are very disappointed
Right.
as to how little support they received.
Right. So,
Only the
yes.
Americans really came out and said that we're unfortunate that India did not cooperate with the Canadians. But keep in mind, they are actually launched
Right.
a charge sheet against what's called CC1, an
Right.
Indian government official, and they have evidence. I mean, they are actually launching an actual legal case against on that front.
Right. So a quick follow-on to that. Yeah, yes, Ambassador Muni, you had a point to make.
No, no. I respect Pramit, but
Yes.
I don't see this that since they are doing something on the strategic front,
Yeah.
we must ignore what they are doing on the political front, because there is a contradiction in most of the foreign policies where they pursue two, three, four courses at the same time,
Right.
and the Western countries are pursuing both the political course on the one hand, which is bashing the Indian government, and on the other hand, they are having strategic relations which suits their own interests.
Right.
So I think we should not make this distinction that since they are having strategic cooperation and agreements, we should ignore what they are saying on the political front.
Right. So they have multiple parallel narratives at work, very
Yes.
clearly from what you're saying, Ambassador Muni. But I want to bring Pramit in on this question of the Khalistan lifeline that we've been hearing, that Trudeau's government has, chosen to grab with both hands for the last couple of years, and there has been this narrative that is being built up, in Canada, that about Khalistan and so-called repression of minorities in India and all that, and the Trudeau government has picked up on that big time, if one can say that. How important is the Khalistan vote bank, Pramit, for Justin Trudeau's personal survival in Canada?
Well, the Sikh vote, I think, is what really matters more. The
Yes.
Khalistan, even in Canada, while the Khalistan movement among the Sikh diaspora is reasonably popular, it's still a very small minority. But because the Sikhs, or a Sikh who has Khalistani sympathies, Jagmeet
Yes.
Singh rules or heads the New Democratic Party. He has lost two regional allies, the NDP as well as the Bloc Québécois. So he's effectively has a minority government. He's now had to fend off two votes of no confidence against him in just a few weeks. And in both
Right.
cases, he had to depend on these parties for support. The Bloc Québécois has made it clear that they have a long list of impossible demands for him
Right.
in case of the next vote of no confidence. So if he wants to survive or avoid early elections, and there are also now voices within his own Liberal Party
Yes.
pointing out the approval rating is now barely 30%, that he had to turn to Jagmeet Singh to support him. And I would guess that this was the price that Jagmeet Singh demanded from him. And
Right.
he succumbed because Trudeau is extraordinarily, should we say, self-centered as a politician.
Right. Extraordinarily self-centered as a politician. Indeed, many politicians are, but few have actually gone out on a limb as Justin Trudeau has over the last couple of years. Ambassador Muni, Justin Trudeau's one-person crusade for the Sikh vote, as Pramit Pal was saying, which also includes many unsavory elements that we in India call the Khalistan movement, the Canadian Khalistan movement. How determined is he to ensure his political survival, for which he will possibly torch or scorch Indo-Canadian relations, as the MEA statement seems to mention?
Well, that's what really worries me, frankly speaking. The Sikhs constitute hardly 2.1% of Canada's
Yes.
population. And out of these 2.1%, very, very small constituency is of the extremists and the Akalis.
Right.
Now, if Trudeau is cultivating this very small constituency for survival, for what? I think is he trying to say survival only up to the next election? Because if the vote of no confidence passes, he would not be facing the elections with the government in his hand. If this is a small gain for which he is putting almost India-Canada relations on the demand and loss, it's very surprising, and that's why I feel that there are forces more than what Trudeau's election compulsions are. I mean, or Trudeau has completely lost his balance of judgment in terms of his own political career and political future. So
Right.
I don't really quite understand. It's quite puzzling to me that why is he doing, and I don't buy this explanation that he's doing only for political gaining or for the next elections.
Right. And while we are on this, Ambassador Muni, there's this very interesting letter from Canada's opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre.
Yes.
It's a harsh one, where, let me read it out to you, where he says that my message to Justin Trudeau is release the names of all MPs who have collaborated with foreign interference. But he won't, because Justin Trudeau is doing what he always does. He is lying to distract from a Liberal caucus vote against his leadership and revelations. He knowingly allowed Beijing to interfere and help him win 2 elections. These are very, very serious allegations coming from Canada's opposition leader. He is in effect calling Prime Minister Trudeau a Manchurian candidate. Pramit, you remember that 1962 Frank Sinatra movie where the Chinese infiltrate a sleeper agent in the heart of American politics? Why do you think this strongly worded statement from the Canadian opposition leader, how alarming is this for Justin Trudeau? The fact that he's being accused of being a Chinese agent. Pramit.
So, in fact, as you know, Trudeau has just testified before a parliamentary committee about foreign interference in Canadian politics. And so there was another argument, again in the Canadian media, that one of the reasons he was raising this Khalistan Indian bogey was because he was scared that at this parliamentary hearing, it would be completely dominated by China. And at that point, he's on a weak footing. You saw that he deliberately underplayed what China was doing, saying that what they do is sort of normal for diplomats.
Yes.
Ignoring the fact that they had to arrest the daughter of Huawei's owner.
Yes.
And had to purge Huawei's ZTE equipment from their country, from their telecom system, and have issued an Indo-Pacific strategy, which doesn't mention India, but has a fairly strong and pretty strong language about China. So I think one of the things he has tried to do is try to get it about India and not about China. And the leader of the opposition, quite rightly, has said he said that, yes, safety of Canadian citizens overriding, but he has tried to refocus it back to what he thinks is the main and a genuine security issue, which is China, which he feels Trudeau is trying to avoid.
Ambassador Modi, China Gate to distract, India Gate to distract from China Gate. You think that's what Prime Minister Trudeau is doing, as Pramit said, that there is a bigger dragon in the room which he's trying to, take attention away from these. And this, as the opposition leader just put out a very strongly worded statement. Do you believe that this is the reason why Prime Minister Trudeau has acted the way he did?
Well, as I said, we need to look at it very seriously. China is, yes, I think Pramit has made a very well point. But besides China is also Pakistan.
Yes.
The Trudeau's intelligence agencies have been telling Trudeau that Pakistanis are supporting and encouraging Akalis in Canada.
Yes.
What is he doing? He has not even mentioned Pakistan anywhere. And then I said the Western countries. So, I find that this is a strange conglomeration of Pakistan, China on the one hand,
yes,
and some of the key Western countries on the other. So it is much beyond his election project.
Right.
I think it is something more to do, and I have no clue what it could be. But for government of India and for all those who are interested, must look deeper into it as what is it which is driving Trudeau in taking this kind of a extremist and absolutely irrational, ununderstandable position.
Extremist and irrational position that
ununderstandable
ununderstandable position. But Deepak, you've been following the trajectory of our ties with Canada, the downhill trajectory of ties, and at the heart of this whole thing is a gangster and his Canadian accomplices. You were on a CBC interview a few hours ago.
Yeah.
What did you actually tell them?
So here's the thing. Every time the name Lawrence Bishnoi crops up,
Yes.
even as the RCMP has, again
Right.
propped him up, it's just a chip on the shoulder of this bloke who is sitting alone in a dark cell in some of India's most secure prisons. No, it's completely preposterous to believe that Bishnoi alone is orchestrating everything from that
Right.
one cell.
Yes.
We must understand that every time such a thing has happened, the claims come forth on social media.
Yes.
Right. Bishnoi is alone and isolated in a cell. At the most, should we believe it, he would be able to send out maybe a couple of lines as instruction,
Right.
orders perhaps.
Right.
But everything else, the extortion, the execution,
Yes.
the murders are happening from abroad. Even in India, you note that all of Bishnoi's associates are
Yeah.
today lodged in different cells.
Yes.
So if you look at the Bishnoi group triumvirate, it was comprised of Bishnoi, Sampat Nehra,
Yes.
and Barar. Sampat Nehra is locked up in a
Right.
different jail. Bishnoi is in Sabarmati.
Right.
It's Goldie Barar who's been in Canada since 2017
So
at least.
Goldie Barar is Lawrence Bishnoi's envoy in Canada, and he does all the consigliere who does all the dirty work.
Essentially, yes. And see, even beyond conciliary, he's as much a part of the group as Bishnoi is. Bishnoi it is the name that got famous.
Right.
So everything that is being done, all of Canada's allegations are actually something that they should look into their own country.
So the question then, Deepak, is that why does Goldie Barar, who is in Canada, seem to have a free run of the land? I mean, how is he able to operate over there? And why has Canada not arrested him? Why have they not detained him? Why have they not questioned him? Despite multiple messages from India, we've sent dossiers with his name, his description and all of that. And Goldie Barar seems to be
Well, it's
running
pretty simple
wild and
because
free.
Goldie Barar sits perfectly ensconced in in this ecosystem that is being mollycoddled by the Liberal Party in Canada. It's the Akali Sikh vote. Now,
Right.
if you look at what has happened in the Punjab in the last 2-3 years, there was an RPG fired at an IB officer's office.
Yes, in Punjab.
In Punjab.
Yes.
There were gunshots fired at a police barricade. Now, all of these acts, while being claimed by the Khalistanis, were perpetrated by gangsters.
Right.
We must understand it was the gangsters and the Khalistani nexus that was
Yes.
causing problems in Punjab for a long time now.
Right,
And
absolutely.
they all go baback to the same place.
And yes.
It's Canada, the Liberal Party, and the Akali ecosystem that exists there.
Canada, the Liberal Party, and the Khalistan ecosystem that exists back there is a
Yeah.
fertile breeding ground for all kinds of rotten apples in Canada, as our panelists were just telling us. But the bigger worry, Deepak, is what Ambassador Muni said: the fact that we have to go beyond just what's driving Justin Trudeau, which is possibly more than just electoral politics, and we must look deeper into what's driving this very extremist and, what he said, ununderstandable course of action that's just literally scorching the earth of Indo-Canadian ties. That's a story that we will keep following and tracking, because India and Canada have actually had no problems until very recently. There were issues, but also another Trudeau. That's a story for another day. But as of now, we've not had any serious disagreements with Canada, 10th largest economy in the world, huge Indian diaspora.
In fact, the problem that we have with Canada is an aberration when it comes to India's relations with most countries.
Which explains the MEA statement, where they're saying that he is holding the India-Canada relations hostage. He's actually held it. He's standing behind this relationship, holding a gun to the head of this hostage that he seems to have taken. And that's unfortunately the story as we're seeing it from here. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Khalistan lifeline. That's the story we've been discussing. Thank you very much, Ambassador Muni, my friend Pramit Pal Chaudhary, and my colleague Deepak Badana.